Let's talk about the spinning top. It's spinning and spinning, and the audience, we're waiting for it to fall over, and then cut to black. I mean, are you kidding me? I want to know if it falls over or not, and we're all rooting for it to fall over, but we will never know. Enraged, furious, discussing, and rewatching the movie again and again to find out if he is in a dream or not. I'm talking about Inception, of course, and I hope you've seen it. If not, go ahead and do that. And I mean, is it a strike of genius, or was it a mistake to use the cliffhanger? And is a cliffhanger even worth it using it at the end of the story? Let's find out in this new episode. Hi, I'm Diana, and this is Story Artist. You're probably familiar with the term, but let's still define cliffhanger. It's supposed to come from a serialized version of Tom Hardy's book, where one of his protagonists is literally left hanging on a cliff at the end of the story. So what does it mean? It means that you never give an answer to a matter of life and death. You never fully release the tension, you never fully give answers to the question raised in your story. And is it a good idea to do so? And how can you use this tool? Because this tool can be quite powerful, but how can you use it in order to be effective? Recently, the final season of The Man in the High Castle was released and got quite bad reviews because it was left hanging on a cliff. It had a cliffhanger as an ending in the final episode where the people would walk through the portal, and it's like, where are they coming from? They're coming from everywhere. Who are these people? What's everywhere? We don't know, and we're left hanging on a cliff. It can be quite a difficult question. So today we're going to discuss the why, the when and the how of the cliffhanger, because it's quite a powerful tool in the storytelling arsenal if you know how to use it right. Let's talk about the why first. Why end on a cliffhanger? The obvious reason is to raise tension and to leave the reader anticipating more. And it makes absolute sense. If you're stopping with a cliffhanger in the middle of your story, or at the end of an episode, or at the end of a serialized book, or at the end of a chapter, for example. We are going to talk about it in more depth in the when section. So the why is to raise tension, to build anticipation, and to leave your reader wanting more, so that they cannot stop reading or watching or whatever medium you're walking on, but they cannot stop and they cannot go out of your story because you'll leave them hanging with tension. If you end on a cliffhanger and the story is over, it's obviously to provoke discussions. So why did Nolan did that? He did it because he wanted to end the story on something that would provoke discussions, and it definitely did. I mean, Nolan's kind of, he likes those cliffhanger endings. He did the same in Memento, kind of. And it provoked discussions. I mean, everybody who's watched Inception can discuss endless hours about whether he was in a dream or not and bring arguments. And it might be a strike of genius if you do it right. But with The Man in the High Castle, the cliffhanger was more of a confusing moment rather than something, is it or is it not? And this is something that Errol Stein says. We're going to talk about it in the how section, but just for now, the why is to provoke discussions and to leave your reader wanting more, even if the story is over. So let's talk about when to end on a cliffhanger. The best use for ending on a cliffhanger is inside your story. So for example, at the end of a chapter, at the end of a paragraph, or if it's a serialized fiction piece, at the end of every episode, every series. You can also use this amazing tool with content marketing and with emailing, for example. If you end an email like this, or but then the next email is to come, obviously, in a couple of days, in a couple of the next days. Or you can end, let's say, with a blog post. If you normally you divide your blog posts in sections, or you have a series of blog posts, but let's talk about one first. When you divide it in sections, it's good to end with a cliffhanger in the middle of by the ending of a section. When you go into the next one, when you have like 5 hacks to lead a more productive life, and then by the end of the first hack, you end with a cliffhanger and release the tension in the second or third hack, for example. This way, you force your reader to go on reading because he wants to find out the answer to the question you're raising. He wants to release the tension. You can do this with a blog post or at the ending of paragraphs of blog posts, emailing, YouTube videos, podcasts, if you want them to listen to the next podcast, and so on. So with every piece of serialized fiction or in the middle of your story, it's an amazing tool. By the end of your story, it's quite tricky, but I like what Errol Stein suggested with the cliffhanger ending, and he likes to do it because it fits the genre, and this is one of the other very important examples. It has to fit the genre. I don't think that romance readers will appreciate if you end with a cliffhanger. I really don't. I don't think that, let's say, historical movies or period pieces will appreciate a cliffhanger ending. Not so much. It has to be science fiction, it has to be horror, it has to be something that is quite supernatural or fits into that niche, because this is how the genre readers, they kind of expect that, but you have to be careful about it. This is why the ending of Chris Nolan's film worked better than The Man in the High Castle. First of all, because The Man in the High Castle, ending a series, a TV piece with several seasons in a cliffhanger is, I don't think it's a good way to do that, because you had the readers or the audience invested into that for such a long time, and you really want to answer all those questions, and you really want to bring those character arcs to a satisfying ending. And the problem with The Man in the High Castle is that it was not only a cliffhanger, but it was really, really confusing. So what you want to do instead, let's get back to Errol Stein's trick. You answer all of those questions, you bring it to a satisfying ending, and in the very end, when the reader thinks everything's fine, you raise a question, or is it? And this is the thing that Chris Nolan did. So he brought everything to a satisfying ending. We have this amazing return of Cobb. He returns home to his kids, and then you have this spinning top, and he asks, or is it? So this is an amazing device if you want to end on a cliffhanger, but be aware, if you do that, you might raise a lot of discussions and you might scare off readers who actually wanted to see a happy ending for your character, or at least a satisfying one where all of the questions are answered. Let's talk about the how now. So there are actually only 2 possible scenarios for ending on a cliffhanger or bringing in a cliffhanger, and it's some new information enters the scene and it raises a question your reader needs to have answered, or the character gets into a situation where you don't know how he's gonna get out of it because it's quite tricky, and it might be a matter of life and death, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be tricky, and it just has to fit the context of the story in order to raise this question of how the heck is he or she going to get out of there. Now let me introduce the open loop technique. I heard about it in Andrew Chaperone's From Tiny Little Businesses email course, and it's quite simple, but it kind of blew me away. And the open loop is the technique of when you raise a question, introduce something new, raise some new information, and then you move on to something else. And the reader is like, what? I need this answered. Why is he answering it? Where's the answer? And you have to read, for example, for this course was about emailing. So if you raise this question about this something new, and then you move on, the reader has to read the next email because his brain won't let him do otherwise. He has to finish the thought, he has to answer the question. Let me give you an example. If in an email you say, I know one amazing secret that will turn every reader into a fan, but then I move on about talking about something else, about productivity, blah, blah, blah. Or I say, and I will tell, let's talk about it in the next mail. First, I want to tell you this. You're like, what? Okay, I need to find out the secret. What is this amazing secret? Or if you're talking about fitness, I have an amazing diet that will blow you away and where you will lose, I don't know how many pounds in how many weeks, but something that really works. But I'll talk to you about it in the next section. First, let's explore healthy living. You're like, what? Okay, this is a cliffhanger and I need to know that. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading the next section, paragraph, the next email in order to find out. And this is an amazing technique, both for fiction and non-fiction as well. So you can introduce it in fiction too. You can bring up some new information or some new person and then move on to the next chapter, to another POV, for example, or you have something else happening that prevents this question from resolving right now. They're starting to talk and the main character says, okay, I have this new information. Have you heard about that? And before they can start talking about it, something happens and they have to flee, blah, blah, blah. And you need to know, what was he talking about? I need to resolve this. I need to find the answer to this question. And this is an amazing tool, an open loop, be it in fiction, be it in nonfiction. So cliffhanger is all about raising tension and about creating a sense of urgency. And this sense of urgency has to prevail in every piece of content. Fiction, nonfiction, blog posts, marketing, sales page even. You can use cliffhangers in sales pages in order for your reader to finish your sales page. You can use it really strategically, open a new loop and then finish the loop at the end of your sales page, or if your reader has to click somewhere in order to find out. But to make sure that you find a plausible reason to withhold this information from your reader. Because if your reader feels teased, if he has the impression that, okay, I'm just getting teased here and it's no fun, he's just withholding this information for a reason, for no reason at all, he will feel cheated. Instead, bring in something new, some new information. For example, you say, okay, I'm going to tell you this secret of how to turn readers into super fans, but first you need to understand this and this principle in order to understand the secret. Okay, this makes sense. You teased him, but then you have to explain this principle. And I don't feel cheated because I feel like, okay, if I need to understand this first, I'm going to read this first in order to find out. The same with fiction. Bring in some plausible reasons, not just, okay, I have this piece of information, but I'm not going to tell you right now. Why not? Okay, it has to be plausible. This is really important. And you have to create this sense of urgency with every piece of content because in this day of age, people don't really finish reading content. And I know from myself, like when I watch YouTube videos, I'm just scrolling forward. I'm just, I don't know, doing something parallelly, like I'm listening to that, I'm working on that, I'm commuting, and our attention is always on demand and we are battling for the attention of our readers. So a cliffhanger is a huge, huge thing. It's an amazing tool, it's an amazing weapon in the battle for the attention of your reader. So be sure to use it right. Be sure to use it in order not to disappoint your reader and make him furious and angry, but to raise tension, create a sense of urgency, and then move him along the story. It's really important to not reveal everything at once. If you do this, you have lost. For example, if you have a blog post and you have subtitles in your blog post, subdividing titles, don't reveal everything in this title. Why should I read the section if you said everything in the subtitle? Make the subtitle instead a cliffhanger, something that leaves the reader hanging, and he's like, okay, what? I need to read the section in order to understand the subtitle, in order to have this question answered that you as the author raised in the subtitle. And this is a mistake many bloggers make. The same with email, the same with storytelling. Don't try to squeeze exposition, explanation, information into huge blocks. Instead, raise questions and answer them as the story is progressing, and make sure that there's always one or several questions that are creating this sense of tension and urgency in your story. If there are no questions hanging in the air, there is no real reason to finish reading your story. You have to make sure there is always one or several questions hanging in the air, and once you answer one because you need it in this very moment in your story, make sure to raise another one and bring it to the very end of your story. You can end with a cliffhanger if it fits your audience, but the cliffhanger is most powerful when used inside the story in order to bring your reader through the story as it is progressing. And there's one huge mistake that many authors and writers and bloggers make that costs them a lot of readers. They're literally losing readers, and they could fix this mistake really easily. What it is and how to do this, I'm going to tell you in the next episode. Yeah, it was an open loop, but you will get the answer to the cliffhanger in the next episode.